Hey everyone, Chris Gildart here. Nintendo's been getting a lot of Musou love lately from Koei, but it hasn't always been that way. Before the Switch, only a few games got ported to Nintendo consoles, but back in the 6th generation of gaming, we got a hack-and-slash game that not only found its way into my collection, but into my heart. No, it wasn't Crimson Sea, Dynasty Warriors 4, or even the first Samurai Warriors. In fact, this game wasn't even a Musou title at all, but it had an overall feeling that was very similar to the classic Warriors games we know and love, and this game was Mystic Heroes. Released September 2002 for the GameCube and later in December of the same year on the PlayStation 2, Mystic Heroes follows some of the characters we might know from Warriors Orochi, Taigong Wang, Neja, and some friends as well. Though, here in the West, we got some different names. Taigong Wang is now just known as Tai, and Neja is now Naja. Also, Naja is a girl in the West. Now, I'm going a little too into detail with this intro, but what you need to know is that Mystic Heroes was seen by some as the Nintendo Warriors game for the generation. So how is Mystic Heroes? As the only Koei title to be released on the GameCube, is it a worthy figure to represent the company? Well, let's find out with the first Pro! Other than the visual style of the game, the first thing you're going to be greeted with is the combat. Overall, this is definitely a warrior-style combat system. You have your normal attacks, your Musou-style special attacks, etc., except there's one little difference. Instead of having a charge attack, you have magic attacks. And there are two different types of magic: ranged and close combat. You can use ranged in various different ways. You can either tap it to fire out in front of you, or you can tap it like a charge attack during your normal combo and throw down a bomb of elemental destruction. The other use is to hold down the button and aim your magic at various enemies, locking onto multiple and firing a bunch of smaller bolts out. Then there's the close combat magic. This kind of acts as your Musou ability for the game. Again, there are various methods of using this ability. If you use it while your magic gauge is full, it will create a huge maelstrom of attacks that will devastate the nearby enemies. If your gauge is partially filled, you will do a string of attacks that seem very reminiscent of the Musou attacks from Dynasty Warriors 2 through 6. If you press it during a normal combo, it'll act very similar to a charge attack. Lastly, if you jump and use the magic, you'll throw a bomb down to the ground, blasting nearby troops. Magic runes can also be found throughout the stages, which can be swapped for a character's usual set of abilities. This can keep things fresh by providing a different moveset or by powering them up a bit with stronger magic. In most cases, characters don't have a magical ability in every slot, so this also provides them with that much needed prowess. These subtle changes to the usual Warriors formula are welcoming, and on top of the familiar aspects of the combat, create a package that any Musou fan will feel not only comfortable with, but also probably really happy to sink their teeth into. God! One thing that you'll also notice upon starting up the game will be that there is no free mode. There's only story, survival, and multiplayer. This means a couple of things. First off, since multiplayer is a selection on the main menu, you can't play the story with two players. This is a bit of a disappointment because this game would have been a lot of fun going through the main story with a friend. Secondly, other than playing each stage in order, the only other single player experience you have is survival. Now this mode serves its purpose. It's nothing special, but it's also the place where you unlock most of the game's unlockables. There's really only a couple that you actually unlock from the story. Lastly, since there's no free mode, should there be? I mean, if the devs didn't put it in, there must be a good reason, right? Well, there is. In Mystic Heroes, you do not carry over your stat increases that you have earned through story to other modes or difficulties. Yeah, so if you want to unlock the stuff from survival mode, you just have to power through it. In fact, some of the things you might even be able to unlock right off the bat. Not being able to carry over your stats from one mode to the next is one thing, and I can't confirm the whole difficulty thing personally, but the guide I was using to unlock some of the runes said you can only carry over your stats if you beat the character's story, and only if you replay the story on that difficulty. That's crazy. I hope this was a rumor or just something that was in the Japanese version, because there are things that you can unlock from the story by beating it on easy, normal, and hard. And I imagine they didn't make it easy on us by making it all pop after a hard mode run. I would have liked to see them implement more of a stat-related growth system, similar to that of the classic Warriors games. Considering it came out after Dynasty Warriors 3, I don't know why this feels so lackluster. Pro! One thing you may not know about me is that I like kawaii things. And the chibi style of the characters in Mystic Heroes is no exception. I honestly wouldn't mind seeing a new Dynasty Warriors game done in this chibi style, maybe something along the lines of the artwork from Dynasty Warriors DS. But at least we have Mystic Heroes if we never see such a Warriors game in the future. The art style for this game is somewhere between Dynasty Warriors 3 and that Inuyasha RPG for the PS2. You still get the intricate character models from Koei's art crew. They look spot on for this generation of their repertoire. Even the minor troops are stylistic and match the world that was built around them. You also get this very mystic Asian atmosphere from all of this. Now I know this was based on a Chinese novel called Fensheng Yanyi, but this was kind of Americanized for the Western release. They renamed everyone to fairly generic sounding Asian names, but honestly, it works. When I first played this game back in the day, I didn't know it was based on a Chinese novel. The whole atmosphere screams Asian culture and I love it. God! A lot of people say how modern Warriors games aren't very difficult anymore. Many people point towards Dynasty Warriors 3 and 4 with their more aggressive foot soldiers and those fucking archers. Well folks, I've got another game to point a finger at and say this game has some smart troops. Mystic Heroes is a tough cookie, that's for sure. The generic troops will actually put up a fight sometimes, but even more than that, the bosses of these stages can really pack a punch. I thought I was gonna die quite a few times while playing this game, and during the boss fights, this was amped up to 11. You really have to utilize the dodge rolls while facing off against some of these enemies. One of the worst things is that nearly every single attack either makes you stagger for way too long, or literally knocks you back to last week. It's almost as if every single troop you fight is the equivalent to an enemy officer in Dynasty Warriors. I don't mind having a bit of difficulty to overcome, but I've said it before that I tend to play video games with the intention of relaxing. Like, these enemy troops have so much power that my allied officers are actually having a hard time. It feels like I'm playing Overwatch as Mercy on a team of Genjis who can't stop crying for healing because they keep swarming the point with no strategy. No, you're bitter. Then there are the archers. The fucking archers. I hate archers in these sort of games. In the classic Warriors games, they always pissed me off, but I was able to overcome them. In Mystic Heroes, they have fucking steroids and they can fire incredibly damaging bolts at you. They are the most overpowered enemy you'll face, and they will make your blood boil. Guaranteed. Bro. One thing I enjoy about Mystic Heroes is that it feels like a classic Koei title a la Dynasty Warriors 3. It does a lot of cool things that I was happy to see in a game like this. One of the biggest things is the voice acting. When compared to Dynasty Warriors 3, Mystic Heroes seems like fucking Citizen Kane. No, it's not that incredible and it's not going to change your life, but there are less poorly delivered lines and less emotional dissonance than Dynasty Warriors 3. And now that I mention it, Dynasty Warriors 9. The other thing that put a slight smile on my face was having progressive display on GameCube. I love it when games from this generation provide a modern display resolution, because it makes capturing footage that much better, as I always love giving you guys the best looking content. The fact that we have a progressive display on top of this game's art style means that it doesn't age in the same way that other games from this era might. The last thing I want to mention is that since this was released on the GameCube, we got a feature that I wish would be given to us in a mainline Warriors game: 4-player co-op. Yeah, I couldn't get 3 friends to jump on a couch and play this with me, but if you want to experience some of the 4-player content, you can jump into the multiplayer with some PC players. I imagine this would have been a fun experience with friends. I wonder what that's like. God! One thing I dislike about Mystic Heroes is that it feels like a classic Koei title a la Dynasty Warriors 6. It does a lot of things that I can't stand. One of the biggest being how the PS2 version has more content than the GameCube version. This might not be quite as bad as Dynasty Warriors 6's situation where they went back a generation and gave more content, but the other thing is that the PS2 literally has twice as many characters. These characters being some of the ones that you would run into throughout the original character stories. Speaking of those 4 characters, there's another thing I need to mention. There are really only 2 stories. Shiga and Lonnie have the exact same story, while Tai and Naja have the same as well. Since I played the GameCube version for the sake of this review, I can't say whether or not the 4 new characters in the PS2 version also bring only 2 new stories. Maybe they only bring 1. Maybe they just rehash the same fucking story you get in the base game. On top of having only 2 stories between the 4 characters, it's really just mixed up stage progressions. The first stage in Naja and Lonnie's story is the Battle of Mount Senkai, while for Shiga and Lonnie, it's the 4th. Sometimes the type of enemies or the time of day will be different, but it still has the same boss at the end, and it still has the same layout and progression, and it still felt the exact same. Now, even though the PS2 version has more content than the GameCube, while not having a progressive display option, at least we got that release. I said earlier that Mystic Heroes is based off of a Chinese novel called Fensheng Yanyi, but Koei also put out a tactical RPG of the same name on the PS1. They also put out a sequel of said RPG on the PS2. The original Japanese title of Mystic Heroes was Botaru Hoshin, and there was a Game Boy Advance RPG they released called Magical Hoshin. That means that there are a total of 3 games we didn't get in this series. I think a tactical style version of this game would be loads of fun. I also want to mention something that only plagues the GameCube version. Some of you may know this about me, but I honestly don't find the GameCube controller overly comfortable. Yeah, it's good for platformers and some very, very specific games, but for Mystic Heroes and other hack-and-slash titles that use a similar combat system to Dynasty Warriors, it just doesn't work. Buttons don't feel well laid out, jumping with B is weird and feels clunky, but attacking with it, Y, or X doesn't feel right either. This is just me rambling about my disdain for the GameCube controller, but it affected my opinion of the game. Lastly, you remember in the last Pro I mentioned the 4-player co-op? That was exciting, right? 4-man couch co-op in a Musou style game. Now, you ready for me to crush it for you? You can't play multiplayer at all in story mode. Nope, not at all. Not even 2-player. The multiplayer is delegated to these challenges that are kind of similar to a free mode, but not quite. These are only fun for the first few runs, then it gets tiring. Why would you put multiplayer in a game that would benefit from it, then bastardize it and give us a half-assed job? I mean, seriously, if you're gonna give me some ass, I want the whole thing. You know what? This game isn't all that incredible. A hack-and-slash action game similar to the likes of Dynasty Warriors with only 4 characters, 2 stories, hard-as-hell difficulty, and barely passable multiplayer. But I had a lot of fun. Sure, it wasn't anything special, but I enjoyed my time with it. If you have a GameCube and that's all you've got and you're looking for a Koei-style hack-and-slash experience, this is literally the only choice for you. But it's not that bad. I had a good time with the story, and the boss battles were pretty exciting once you figured them out. They weren't like Dark Souls crazy, but you definitely needed to understand their patterns and learn what works and what doesn't. So in the end, Mystic Heroes on the GameCube was a fun, middle-of-the-road adventure, which I would give a 6.5 out of 10. As I said, I had fun with it, and if you enjoy classic Warriors games of this generation, you'll more than likely find a good time as well. But the bare-bones nature of the game makes it a hard recommendation if you're already able to play the classic Warriors titles. This is definitely something I can only recommend to people who either own a Wii or a GameCube. And even if you own a Wii, I'd recommend Samurai Warriors 3 or Sengoku Basara over this one. But anyways, everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe for more Musou-made videos all month long. Did you play Mystic Heroes as a kid? Or were you like me, growing up with a PS2 and wondering if you were missing out on something? Let me know in the comments. If you'd like to help the channel out and get your name at the end of every single video, you can join the Guild via Patreon, like these awesome people that you're seeing on screen right now. Check out the links you see on screen and in the description below, and I will see you all down in the comments.